My name is Emily Parker, and at 29, I thought I understood what family meant. I was wrong. When my beloved grandmother passed away, leaving me her entire fortune, my relatives turned into strangers overnight. They dragged me to court, claiming I manipulated a dying woman. But they had no idea what I discovered in her secret safe, one document that would send them all to prison. Growing up, Grandmother Rose was my sanctuary. While my parents worked endless hours at their restaurant, I spent summers at her Victorian house with its wraparound porch and rose garden that gave her name meaning. She'd bake her famous almond cookies while telling me stories of immigrating from Taiwan with nothing but determination and a small suitcase. Rose Lynn arrived in America in 1962 with $50 and broken English. She worked as a seamstress by day and cleaned offices at night. Within 7 years, she had saved enough to open Lynn's Alterations, a tiny shop that eventually grew into Lynn Fashion Enterprises, supplying custom garments to high-end boutiques nationwide. Success comes from seeing opportunities, not obstacles, she'd tell me, her weathered hands showing me how to embroider delicate patterns. By the time I was born, Grandmother Rose was a respected businesswoman, having outlived my grandfather by 15 years, but never remarrying. "Your grandfather was my heart," she'd say, touching the jade bracelet he'd given her. "One true love is enough for any lifetime." Unlike my mother's siblings, I visited Rose because I genuinely enjoyed her company. My Aunt Linda only appeared when she needed money for her husband's failing construction business. Uncle David showed up with get-rich-quick schemes that never worked. My cousin Marcus treated Rose like a personal ATM, constantly borrowing money for his gambling debts. I came every weekend simply to spend time with her. When I was 22, I moved in temporarily to help during her hip surgery recovery. Those 6 months deepened our bond immeasurably. She taught me everything about business, negotiation, quality control, employee relations, skills that later helped me build my own graphic design studio. "You have the Lynn business sense," she'd say proudly. "The others only want the Lynn money." As Rose entered her 80s, her health declined. Arthritis gnarled her once nimble fingers. Her eyesight weakened, making it difficult to read the financial newspapers she loved. When she fell and broke her wrist at 83, I made the difficult decision to temporarily close my growing design business and move back into care for her. "You shouldn't sacrifice your life for me," she protested weakly. "You're not a sacrifice. You're my choice," I replied, meaning every word. For 18 months, I managed her medications, drove her to appointments, and helped her navigate daily tasks. We established new routines: Tuesday tea parties with old friends, Thursday afternoon drives along the coast, and Saturday mornings in her garden where I became her hands, planting the flowers she could no longer tend. During this time, the rest of the family rarely visited. Linda called monthly, always steering conversations toward Rose's will. Marcus appeared twice, both times demanding loans. David showed up sporadically, usually with investment opportunities that required immediate funding. In Rose's final months, she became more contemplative. "I've made certain arrangements," she told me one evening as we watched sunset from her porch swing. "When the time comes, everything will be clear." "What arrangements?" I asked. She patted my hand with her fragile one. "Just know that I see everything, Emily. I always have. The vultures won't get what they haven't earned." Rose passed peacefully on a Wednesday morning in March. I was reading her favorite poetry aloud when she took her final breath and was gone. The room felt emptied of light the moment her spirit departed. The family descended like a storm. Linda swept in with dramatic sobs that ceased whenever she thought no one was watching. Marcus wore an ill-fitting black suit, his eyes darting around the house, appraising valuable items. David reeked of cologne meant to mask alcohol, his hands shaking slightly. "Such a tragedy," Linda announced loudly at the funeral home. Mother and I were so close. I bit my tongue, remembering the months when Linda hadn't even called to check on Rose's condition. The funeral was well attended. Former employees flew in from across the country. Business associates sent elaborate flower arrangements. Throughout the service, I noticed my relatives scanning the crowd, noting who represented money or connections. During my eulogy, Linda checked her phone twice. At the reception afterward, I caught Marcus slipping upstairs. When I went up later for a quiet moment, Rose's desk drawers were slightly ajar and papers seemed disturbed. That evening, I overheard Linda and David in the kitchen. "The will reading is Friday," Linda was saying. "My lawyer friend says Mother was worth at least $10 million. The business, real estate, investments, it all adds up. Question is, how much is Emily getting?" David replied, "She's been playing the devoted granddaughter act pretty convincingly." Their words hit like physical blows. Act? I had put my career on hold out of love, not calculation. Friday arrived with tense anticipation. We gathered at the office of Rose's longtime attorney, Mr. Peterson, a distinguished man who had handled her legal affairs for 2 decades. He seemed particularly kind to me, offering sincere condolences before beginning. "Before I start," Peterson said, "I want to note that Rose was completely sound of mind when she made final amendments to this will 4 months ago. She understood exactly what she was doing. The will began with small bequests, jewelry to friends, artwork to charities. Then came the bombshell. To my granddaughter Emily Parker, who showed me true love and loyalty, I leave my controlling interest in Lynn Fashion Enterprises, my primary residence and contents, and the sum of $8 million from my investment accounts." The room erupted. Linda leaped to her feet, face twisted with rage. "This is impossible. She was manipulated." David knocked over his water glass. "Emily convinced her to cut us out." Marcus's face turned purple. "That's our family money." Peterson raised his hands for quiet. The provisions for other family members were modest, $150,000 each to Linda, David, and Marcus, plus some personal items. This was Rose's decision, made with complete clarity. Peterson concluded firmly. "We'll fight this," Linda hissed at me. "You won't keep what you stole." Later that afternoon, returning to Rose's house, now legally mine, I found the back door unlocked. Inside, drawers had been opened, books pulled from shelves, cushions displaced. Someone had searched for something. In Rose's study, I noticed a small safe built into the wall behind a painting. It was locked, and I had no idea where the key might be. Leaving that evening, I found a note under my windshield wiper. "Give up what isn't yours or face the consequences." Standing in the darkening driveway, I felt chilled despite the warm evening air. 3 months later, the family conflict had escalated to legal warfare. Lynn Fashion Enterprises continued operating under Rose's established management team, but my transition to leadership was complicated by ongoing legal challenges. My attempts at reconciliation failed spectacularly. I invited Linda to lunch, hoping to find common ground. "I know you're upset about the will," I began carefully, "but surely we can work something out that honors what Grandma wanted while—" "Save it," Linda cut me off. "You think I don't know what you did? 18 months playing nurse while poisoning her mind against us. Mother would never have cut me out if you hadn't manipulated her." My meeting with Marcus went worse. "You know I'm in debt," he said immediately. "Grandmother knew that too. She would have wanted you to help me." "I'm happy to help you find financial counseling," I offered. His laugh was bitter. "I don't need counseling. I need $2 million to clear what I owe. Dangerous people are looking for me, Emily. That sounds like a police matter. Give me what I deserve and this goes away," he said, rising to leave. "Otherwise, I hope you can live with the consequences." David's confrontation was the most public. He appeared at my design studio, clearly intoxicated at noon. My assistant tried to stop him, but he pushed past into a client meeting. "Here she is," he announced to my startled clients. "The manipulative little schemer who stole our family legacy." Security escorted him out, but word spread quickly through our small creative community. Soon I heard disturbing reports. Marcus had been telling anyone who would listen that I had medicated Rose to get her to sign the new will. Linda spread rumors that I had prevented family from visiting during Rose's final months. David told his drinking buddies that I had threatened to abandon Rose's care if she didn't change her will. The whispers affected my business. 3 clients canceled contracts. A gallery exhibition invitation was rescinded. Former colleagues became distant, clearly uncomfortable with the controversy. Then came the lawsuit. The family had hired Gregory Walsh, an aggressive attorney specializing in will contests. His 15-page filing claimed undue influence, diminished capacity, and coercion, attacking both Rose's mental competence and my character. Finding legal representation proved surprisingly difficult. 2 attorneys declined my case after initial consultations, citing conflicts of interest. I later discovered that Linda's husband had connections throughout the local legal community. When I finally found Jessica Martinez, a sharp attorney recently relocated from Chicago, it felt like providence. They're using intimidation tactics, Jessica explained. The whisper campaign, difficulty finding representation, escalating threats, it's designed to make you surrender before trial. A settlement offer arrived the following week. In exchange for dropping misconduct claims against me, the family would allow me to keep the house and $1 million. They would control the business and remaining $7 million. This is their opening offer, Jessica explained. They're hoping fear will make you settle. I won't give them anything, I said firmly. This isn't about money. It's about honoring Rose's wishes. While organizing Rose's home office, I discovered financial records revealing a disturbing pattern. Over the past decade, Linda had borrowed $250,000 from Rose. Marcus had received loans totaling $400,000, none repaid. David had been given $600,000 for failed business ventures. They were already getting their inheritance, I told Jessica, showing her the records. Rose supported them while she was alive. This establishes a pattern of financial dependence, Jessica said, adding the documents to our growing file. It explains their motivation for challenging the will. As the court date approached, my isolation intensified. People I'd known my entire life crossed streets to avoid me. The family's narrative was winning public opinion. One evening, I received a text from an unknown number. "We know about the safe. Give us what's inside or else." I changed the locks the next day. With trial just weeks away, I threw myself into preparing Rose's house for potential sale. While sorting through her bedroom closet, I found a leather journal tucked inside a hatbox. The journal spanned Rose's final 3 years, her handwriting progressively shakier as pages advanced. It documented her thoughts, business decisions, and growing concerns about family members. October 12th. Linda visited today. Within minutes, she was asking about investing in her husband's new project. When I asked for a business plan, she became offended. "Don't you trust your own daughter?" she asked. "Trust has nothing to do with business sense." December 8th, Marcus came by. Another gambling debt. I paid after he broke down crying about threats. This is the last time. He needs to face consequences. February 15th, David was intoxicated at noon. He knocked over my crystal vase and didn't notice. When I mentioned rehab again, he stormed out. If only Emily weren't traveling for work this week. Her visits are my only joy. The most disturbing entries came from her final year. May 3rd. I've decided Emily will inherit the bulk of my estate. The others have received more than enough with nothing to show for it. I need to take precautions. June 20th. Updated my will with Peterson. Also spoke with my accountant. He's documenting all family loans. I've asked him to prepare a complete financial history. September 8th. Linda brought her husband over unexpectedly. While she distracted me in the kitchen, he was alone in my study for 10 minutes. My desk drawer was slightly open afterward. Nothing missing, but something feels wrong. The final entry, dated 2 weeks before her death, chilled me. March 15th. I've gathered everything together. The key is with my jade bracelet, the one Thomas gave me. Emily will know what to do. I've seen how they look at me now, not as family but as a bank account. Only Emily sees me as a person. The journal was powerful evidence, but it also broke my heart. Rose had been more aware of the family's schemes than I'd realized. That evening, my phone rang with an unknown number. "Emily Parker?" a woman's voice asked. "Yes. This is Carol Zhang. I was your grandmother's physical therapist during her final year. I've been following the news about the will contest. There's something you should know." I remembered Carol, a kind, professional woman who had come twice weekly for Rose's therapy. "Your uncle and cousin visited your grandmother the day before she changed her will," Carol continued. "I overheard them threatening her. They said if she didn't make her estate plans more fair, they would have her declared incompetent and take control of her affairs. Your grandmother was frightened but determined. After they left, she called her attorney immediately." Carol agreed to provide a sworn statement, another crucial piece of evidence. The next day, I met with Rose's accountant, Mr. Kim, who had managed her finances for 15 years. He arrived with a thick folder. "Rose asked me to prepare this 6 months before she passed," he explained. "She said it might be needed someday." Inside was detailed financial documentation showing suspicious patterns. Large withdrawals coincided with family visits. Credit card charges for expensive restaurants and luxury items appeared after Linda's visits. Cash withdrawals matched dates of Marcus's desperate appearances. "She knew?" I asked, stunned by the meticulous records. "Rose didn't miss much," Mr. Kim said sadly. "She was conflicted about documenting this, but wanted the truth preserved." That night, I remembered Rose's journal mentioning the jade bracelet key. I found the bracelet in her jewelry box. Thomas had given it to her on their wedding day. Hidden inside the clasp was a tiny key. With trembling hands, I went to the safe in her study. The key fit perfectly. Inside were USB drives, document folders, and a letter addressed to me in Rose's handwriting. "For Emily. Use if necessary." The USB drives contained audio recordings Rose had somehow made without family members' knowledge. Linda demanding money for a vacation home. Marcus begging for cash to pay bookies. David angrily insisting he deserved an early inheritance. Most shocking was a recording of Linda and her husband discussing plans to contest the will nearly a year before Rose's death. "When the old lady finally dies, we'll claim Emily manipulated her," her husband's voice said clearly. "Doesn't matter if it's true. By the time court sorted out, she'll settle just to end the nightmare." The document folders contained signed loan agreements from family members, none repaid. There were also photographs. Marcus leaving a casino after claiming he needed money for medical bills. Linda wearing expensive jewelry purchased with Rose's credit card. David selling Rose's antique furniture that he claimed had been gifted to him. Most damning was a private investigator's report Rose had commissioned. The PI had documented Linda's lavish spending despite claimed financial hardship, Marcus's connections to known bookies, and David's pattern of pawning family heirlooms. Rose had assembled an airtight case proving the family's true motivations. I called Jessica immediately. After reviewing everything, she was optimistic. "This changes our strategy completely," she said. "The recordings might not be admissible depending on consent laws, but the financial documents and photos absolutely are." The night before trial, I heard someone trying to force the back door. I called police, who arrived quickly, but the intruder had fled. A crowbar lay abandoned near the door, and the safe showed scratches around its edges. They knew about the evidence and were desperate to get it before court. The county courthouse was an imposing brick building with marble columns. I arrived early with Jessica, my stomach churning despite our strong evidence. The gravity hit me as we passed through security. My own family was trying to destroy me for money they hadn't earned. Linda, David, and Marcus arrived together, a unified front in coordinated dark suits that screamed, respectable grieving family. Linda carried a handkerchief embroidered with Rose's initials, dabbing at dry eyes for effect. Gregory Walsh, their attorney, exuded confidence in his expensive suit, accompanied by 2 associates who moved around him like sharks. Judge Margaret Foster entered precisely at 9. A woman in her 50s with graying hair and sharp eyes, she had a reputation for thoroughness and immunity to theatrics. "This court will hear the estate contest," she announced. "I've reviewed both filings. I'm interested in facts, not emotional appeals or unsubstantiated accusations." Walsh opened masterfully, painting Rose as a vulnerable elderly woman manipulated by a calculating granddaughter. According to him, I had systematically isolated Rose from her loving family, turning her against them through constant negative influence. "Your Honor, Emily Parker saw opportunity and seized it," Walsh said, his voice resonating. She moved into Mrs. Lynn's home under the guise of providing care, but her real motivation was controlling access to influence a substantial estate's distribution. Jessica remained composed, taking notes while occasionally squeezing my arm reassuringly. Walsh's witness parade began. A former gardener claimed he'd overheard me telling Rose that her children only wanted her money. He conveniently failed to mention Rose had fired him for stealing garden tools, a fact Jessica highlighted during cross-examination. Rose's hairdresser testified that I had canceled several family visits, claiming Rose wasn't feeling well. Under Jessica's questioning, she admitted having no way of knowing if Rose was actually ill those days. Most surprising was my ex-boyfriend from college, Jake, whom I hadn't seen in 8 years. He described me as manipulative and money-focused, claiming I had once said I was waiting for my grandmother's money to solve my problems. His testimony felt like a betrayal until Jessica revealed during cross-examination that Jake had recently gotten a job at David's construction company. During lunch recess, Marcus approached me in the hallway. "It's not too late to settle," he said, voice low and threatening. "This will only get worse for you." "Is that why you paid off my ex-boyfriend to lie?" I asked. Something flickered in his eyes, surprised that I knew, perhaps, before he masked it with a sneer. "We're just getting started." The afternoon brought financial experts hired by Walsh who presented charts suggesting Rose's investment decisions became erratic after I moved in. Jessica's cross-examination revealed they had cherry-picked transactions while ignoring the overall stability of Rose's portfolio. By late afternoon, a disturbing pattern emerged in Walsh's strategy: character assassination through carefully curated half-truths. Text messages between Rose and me were presented with crucial context removed. Photos of Rose looking tired were shown as evidence of declining mental state, while I supposedly exerted undue influence. When court adjourned, I felt defeated despite Jessica's assurances. "They're front-loading their strongest arguments," she explained as we walked to her car. "Tomorrow we start our defense, and that's when we introduce Rose's evidence." That evening, Dr. Peterson, Rose's physician for 12 years, called me. "Emily, I've been traveling for a medical conference," he said. "I just heard about the contest. I want to testify." I performed Rose's cognitive assessments every 3 months during her final 2 years. She was sharp until the very end. No one could have manipulated her. She was too intelligent. The second day dawned with foreboding. My family entered with subtle smirks, clearly believing victory was near. Linda had upgraded her prop handkerchief to a framed photo of Rose. Walsh began by calling his star witness, Dr. Mitchell Roberts, a geriatric psychiatrist who had never met Rose but reviewed her medical records. "Based on my analysis, Mrs. Lynn exhibited classic signs of cognitive vulnerability in her final years," Roberts testified. "Memory lapses, confusion about dates, difficulty with financial concepts, all consistent with diminished capacity." Jessica's cross-examination was surgical. "Dr. Roberts, have you spoken with Mrs. Lynn's actual treating physician?" "No, I have not." "So your assessment is based solely on partial medical records provided by the contestant's attorney?" "Yes, but are you aware that Mrs. Lynn's actual physician will testify later about cognitive assessments he personally conducted?" Walsh objected, but the damage was done. Robert's credibility was undermined. Next came Linda's dramatic testimony. She dabbed at tears while describing her close relationship with Rose and shock at being cut out of the will. "Mother and I spoke daily," Linda claimed. "She confided everything to me. Then Emily moved in, and suddenly Mother didn't want to talk anymore. When I visited, Emily was always hovering, listening to every word." Jessica's cross-examination revealed Linda had visited Rose exactly 6 times in 18 months, according to Rose's journals and calendar entries. "And during those 6 visits," Jessica continued, "phone records show you called your mother approximately 22 times total. That's far from daily communication, isn't it?" Linda flushed. "I was busy with charity work." "Charity work like your month-long European vacation last year?" Jessica asked, producing photos from Linda's social media. The morning progressed with similar revelations. Marcus's gambling debts were exposed. David's history of alcohol-related incidents came to light. By lunch break, Walsh looked less confident while my family exchanged worried glances. In the afternoon, Dr. Peterson took the stand, presenting clear evidence of Rose's cognitive soundness. Rose's accountant testified about her continued business acumen. Carol, the physical therapist, described the threatening visit from David and Marcus. As the day wore on, Judge Foster's expression grew increasingly troubled as she took notes. The family's case was unraveling, but Walsh was skilled at damage control, repeatedly emphasizing my financial gain as motive for manipulation. Near day's end, Jessica called me to testify. I spoke about my relationship with Rose, the care I had provided, and my lack of awareness about her wealth's extent until after her death. "Emily," Jessica asked, "did you ever attempt to influence your grandmother's will decisions?" "Never," I said firmly. "We barely discussed it. Rose was private about financial matters until the very end." Walsh's cross-examination was aggressive. He presented a photo of me at Rose's bank, suggesting I had inappropriately accessed her accounts. I explained I had been depositing business checks because she had difficulty driving. "Isn't it convenient," Walsh pressed, "that the person who spent the most time with Mrs. Lynn in her final years receives the bulk of her $10 million estate?" "I didn't spend time with her to get her money," I replied, fighting to keep my voice steady. "I spent time with her because I loved her." As the day concluded, Judge Foster addressed both parties. "We'll resume tomorrow morning for final evidence and closing arguments. I expect to rule by day's end." That night, Jessica and I finalized our strategy. The financial records, journal entries, and witness testimonies had been effective, but we hadn't played our strongest card: the recordings and investigators' report Rose had secured. "We save it for last," Jessica decided. Maximum impact. The final day began with Walsh presenting his forensic accountant, who testified about suspicious patterns in Rose's finances after I moved in. Jessica's cross-examination quickly established these patterns were actually consistent with Rose's previous spending habits. Linda took the stand again for what Walsh called clarifying testimony. Her performance was even more emotional, complete with trembling voice and strategic pauses. "My mother would never have wanted our family torn apart like this," she said, looking directly at me with accusation. "Emily has destroyed our family legacy for personal gain." Judge Foster listened intently, occasionally nodding as Linda spoke. My heart sank. Despite our evidence, was the judge being swayed by Linda's performance? After lunch recess, Jessica announced, "Your Honor, we have one final piece of evidence." I approached the bench with a sealed envelope, hands trembling. Judge Foster accepted it with a questioning look. As she opened it and began reading, her expression transformed from curiosity to shock to grim determination. "Counsel, approach the bench," she ordered. Jessica and Walsh stepped forward for a hushed conference. Walsh's face drained of color as he glanced back at my family. Judge Foster addressed the courtroom. "Based on evidence just presented, this court is taking a 15-minute recess. No one is to leave the courtroom." She exited quickly, envelope clutched in her hand. The document contained 3 critical pieces of evidence. First, a notarized statement from Linda's husband written during their brief separation the previous year, a separation they had reconciled from but which generated legal documents. In it, he admitted to a conspiracy to pressure Rose into changing her will, including plans to have her declared incompetent if she refused. Second, bank records showing systematic theft from Rose's accounts using duplicate checks and forged signatures, orchestrated by Linda and executed by Marcus. Third, a police report filed by Rose 5 months before her death documenting concerns about elder financial abuse. She had withdrawn the complaint under family pressure, but the report remained on file. Most damning was attached evidence that my family had been planning to place Rose in a substandard nursing facility against her wishes to gain control of her assets, documented in emails between Linda and a facility known for minimal care standards. When Judge Foster returned, she was accompanied by 4 police officers. Based on evidence presented to this court, I am ordering immediate detention of Linda Parker, David Lynn, and Marcus Chun for questioning regarding potential elder abuse, financial fraud, and conspiracy. The courtroom erupted. Linda screamed. "This is ridiculous." Emily planted that evidence. In her panic, she made a fatal mistake. Those recordings were supposed to be destroyed. Her inadvertent admissions silenced the room. She had just confirmed knowledge of evidence she shouldn't have known existed unless she was guilty. David bolted for the door, but was intercepted by an officer. Marcus collapsed into his chair, head in his hands. Judge Foster banged her gavel repeatedly for order. This court finds no merit whatsoever in the contest of Rosalind's will. The will stands as written, with all assets distributed according to her clearly expressed wishes. Furthermore, I am referring this matter to the district attorney's office for criminal investigation. She looked at me with unexpected compassion. Miss Parker, this court apologizes for the ordeal you've endured. Your grandmother would be proud of how you've defended her final wishes. As police led my family away, Linda turned to hurl one final accusation at me. The words died on her lips when she saw me holding Rose's jade bracelet. In that moment, she finally understood. Rose had been several steps ahead of them all along. The months following brought both resolution and difficult healing. The criminal investigation proceeded swiftly, bolstered by Rose's meticulous documentation. Linda and her husband faced felony charges for elder abuse and conspiracy, eventually accepting plea deals including restitution and probation. Marcus received a lighter sentence in exchange for testimony. David entered court-mandated rehabilitation. Standing in Rose's garden one morning, watching tulips she'd planted emerge, I felt mixed emotions. Vindication, yes, but also sadness. The inheritance had revealed my family's true character, just as Rose had warned. Working with Peterson, I established the Rose Lynn Foundation for Elder Protection, using a significant portion of the inheritance to fund elder abuse prevention programs and legal assistance for seniors facing exploitation. Healing proved more challenging than managing the inheritance. I found support in a group for family estrangement survivors, meeting with others who understood the unique pain of family betrayal. 6 months after the trial, while renovating Rose's home, I discovered one final gift. Behind a loose stone in the garden wall was a waterproof container holding a letter dated weeks before her death. My dearest Emily, if you're reading this, the storm has come and hopefully passed. I've watched my children make troubling choices driven by entitlement rather than effort. I enabled this too long, believing family loyalty required financial support regardless of merit. You showed me different loyalty, based on love and respect rather than expectation. Your care during my final years gave me more joy than all my business success. Remember that true wealth isn't measured in dollars, but in how we touch others' lives. You've always understood this. Build something meaningful, Emily. Choose your family wisely going forward. Surround yourself with those who celebrate your success rather than resent it. All my love, Rose. Her words brought tears and clarity. The inheritance was never the true gift. Rose's real legacy was the wisdom she shared, the values she demonstrated, and the unconditional love she gave. The business thrived under my guidance, informed by Rose's principles. I implemented profit sharing for employees and expanded sustainable practices. Lynn Fashion Enterprises became known not just for quality products, but exceptional workplace culture. My personal life rebuilt around authentic connections. I found friendship with foundation volunteers, mentorship with ethical business leaders, and eventually love with someone who valued me for myself, not my inheritance. 2 years after Rose's passing, I hosted a memorial garden dedication at the local senior center, funded by the foundation. As sunset painted the sky over newly planted roses, Rose's favorites, I reflected on the journey from betrayal to rebuilding. The inheritance my family fought desperately to control had created more community good than their greed would ever have allowed. Rose's foresight transformed what could have been mere wealth transfer into positive change. I had finally found peace. Rose had known all along what truly mattered. Family isn't defined by DNA, but by actions. Legacy isn't about money, but about impact. And sometimes the most valuable inheritance is wisdom to recognize true character in others and ourselves. Family, I learned, is about love and loyalty, not entitlement. Rose taught me that the people who truly care about you celebrate your success rather than resent it. That's a lesson worth more than any inheritance could ever be.